Hi there, welcome to this beginner-friendly HTML course. If you've always wanted to create websites, this is a perfect place to start. In this course, I will teach you how to create websites using HTML. From the basics to advanced topics, I will guide you step by step. By the end, you'll be able to create your own professional-looking web pages. Here is what you will learn: how to structure a web page using HTML tags, building forms, tables and adding images, creating graphics with SVGs and adding multimedia content. You will also do real-world exercises to practice and build confidence. This course is for anyone. If you've never written a single line of code, don't worry. If you want to improve your HTML skills, this is the course for you. No prior experience is needed. Why learn HTML? HTML is the heart of every website. It's the first step in learning web development. Once you know HTML, you can easily move on to CSS and JavaScript to build amazing websites. So, let's get started. Subscribe to my channel to follow this course and learn step by step. By the end, you'll be ready to create websites and begin your web development journey. Hi everyone, and welcome to this lesson. In this lesson, we are going to be downloading or setting up our environment. It's actually our coding environment. So we are going to be downloading one of the text editor or code editor that we are going to be using throughout this course. And that editor is nothing but Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code. So you want to make sure that you have internet connection. So I'm going to connect my computer. So I'm going to connect my computer to the internet. Now once the connection is succeeded, I'm going to fire up one of my browsers. So if you have Mozilla Firefox or Safari or Microsoft Edge, whichever browser you want to use is okay, but I'm going to fire up my Google Chrome. So here is my Google Chrome. I'm going to double click on it and then it's going to open up. So here I'll simply type Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code, and then I'll hit enter. So here we can see the first link. So I'm going to click on the first link, and here we have the official website of Visual Studio Code. And here we have a download button. So you can click download for Windows. So I'll just click on download for Windows. And you can see that the download process has started. And it says thanks for downloading Visual Studio Code for Windows. For any reason your download process has not started, so you can click on download direct link. So click on direct download link. So let's wait for the download to finish. So once the download is finished, so I'm going to click on this. So I'm going to click on it, and then it says opening Visual Studio Code. And here we have the dialog box that enables us to install Visual Studio Code. So at the bottom it says accept the agreement. So I'm going to accept the agreement and click on next. Then leave every other thing by default and then click on next. It says the folder this exists. Would you like to overwrite? Actually, I have downloaded this before, so I'm going to install the folder anyway. So click on yes. And here it says select start menu folder. So I'll leave it by default. So click on next. Then I would want to create a desktop icon. So I'll click on this box and click next. Then ready to install. So I'll click on next to start installation. And it says launch Visual Studio Code. So for now, I'll click on finish and it's going to launch the Visual Studio Code. So for any reason you could not find your downloaded file, you can equally go to your file explorer. So you can go to your file explorer and then locate your download folder. So in most cases, downloads are stored in the download folder. So you can see I have a Visual Studio Code setup. If I want to install this, I will just simply double click on it, or I will right click. So once you right click on your mouse, you can click on open, or you can run as an administrator. Both of these will install Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to close this, then I'll click on finish. So here we have our Visual Studio Code installed and running. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'll click on this icon. Here it says extensions. Now Visual Studio Code comes with extensions that can actually extend the feature of Visual Studio Code. So if I click on this, and it's going to search the available extensions in the marketplace, and for any reason I have an extension in mind, I can simply enter the search and then search for the extension I want. So for now, just click on the extensions, and once it opens, you are going to see a live server. So you see the live server extension. So I'm going to click install, and the live server installation will begin. Now once it is installed, it will be listed in the installed extensions. So you can see right here at the top, we have just one extension listed in the installed tab. So here we have the installed tab, and these are the ones that are yet to be installed. So for now, this is just what we need, and now we can now close these tabs and then click on the Explorer icon, and here we have the Explorer icon. On top of the Visual Studio Code are some menu bars, so which we are going to look at in future lessons. And for any reason you do not understand the installation process, you can always go back, rewind the video, and then watch it and follow how to set up a Visual Studio environment on your computer. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next lecture. Hello friends, and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to create our first file, our first HTML file, and then we'll start writing HTML code. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder or a directory, and this directory is going to store all of our files. So it's like a project directory. So whenever you want to create a project or you want to write some code, you must have a directory that stores your code. So here on my desktop, I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to create a new folder. So this folder, I'm just going to call it HTML. So whatever you choose to call it, you can call it. So for now, I want to call it HTML. So now I have the directory created. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to fire up my Visual Studio Code. That is what we'll be using for this course. So right now I'm going to fire it up. And once it opens, you go to File and then you click on Open Folder, so we can connect the recently created folder to our code editor. So File and then click on Open Folder. So once I click on that, and then make sure you are on the right directory. So I'm on my desktop, and then I have the file I just created, HTML. So I'm going to select it and click on Select Folder, and here we have it. So I'm going to increase this a bit. So right now we have our folder, our project directory listed or connected to our code editor. We have some few icons. So the first icon is, when we click on it, it's going to create a new file, and then the second icon is going to create a new folder. So most of the time we'll be using this, or I can simply right click and then create a new file, create a new folder, and do other things. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new HTML file. So I'll right click on this space and then click on Create New File. Then I'm going to name this file. So I'm going to name it index.html and then hit enter on your keyboard. So right here my file has been created as index.html. You can call the file whatever you wish, but make sure that the extension .html is added to the file. Now we have our file and it's empty right now. So we're going to bring up what we call HTML boilerplate. Now HTML boilerplate is like a structure we need to bring up before we start writing HTML code. So we have to bring up a structure, and there is a shortcut, especially if you are using the Microsoft Visual Studio Code. There's a shortcut on my keyboard. If I simply bring in an exclamation mark and then I'm going to hit enter, and here you can see the boilerplate or the structure we need to have before we start writing HTML. So for any reason exclamation mark is not working, you can simply enter doc and then hit tab on your keyboard, and this will also bring up the structure or HTML boilerplate. So now I'm going to open this on the browser. So first of all, I'm going to share my screen. So here we have our code editor. So right now I'm going to right click anywhere on this space. I'll right click on the anywhere on this space and then click on Open with Live Server. And this is the reason for the Live Server we installed in the previous video. So once you've installed Live Server as an extension, you are going to see this link, Open with Live Server. So right now if I click on Open with Live Server, and this will fire up our browser. So here we have it. So I'm going to share the screen so we can see everything on the go. So right now I'm going to code or make changes on the code editor, and then the changes will be reflected on the fly once I save. So for example, we have the structure of our HTML, and I'm going to use the first structure which actually have the doc type included. So I'm going to remove this and then bring up the exclamation mark and hit tab. So here we have the doc type, and this doc type actually means the document is a way of telling the browser that this document is HTML. So this document is a standard HTML. And next we have another HTML tag, and you notice that once this is highlighted, it's also going to highlight a closing tag. Now the difference between this and this is that this has a trailing slash. You can see that there's a slash before the HTML, why this does not have. So when you see this is the opening tag and this is the closing tag. Now the same thing with the body, we have the opening body tag and we have the closing body tag. Here we have the opening head tag and then we have the closing head tag. So everything in HTML is a tag. The tag is usually made up of the less than sign, a keyword, and then the greater than sign. And whenever you see a trailing slash, is the closing tag of the opening tag. So the first change I'm going to make is on the title. So if I change the title to HTML training or HTML class. So if I change the title to HTML class, now if I save on my keyboard by holding down Ctrl S, you can see that the changes has been reflected on the browser. So you can see we have HTML class. So every page or every web page has a title, and this is where you can change the title. So once the title is being updated, it's going to be reflected here on our web page. Next we have an important tag, which is a body tag. Now for anything to display on the body of our browser, then our code has to go inside the body tag. For example, if I want to make a heading, so once I enter H1 and then click on tab, and this is going to automatically complete the closing tag. So right now if I save, if I save, it doesn't reflect on the browser. So right now I'm going to write something in between the tag. So if I say example, or let's say this is a heading. So if I save this, and here we have it, this is a heading. Then we also have other heading tag. We have H1, we also have H2. So if I say H2 tab, and then I'm going to repeat, this is a heading. So I'm going to copy this and then paste it here. If I save, and here we can see, so this clearly indicates that the heading 1 is bigger than the heading 2. So the same thing goes for H3. If I paste this, save it once more, and here we have it. So we also have H4. If I paste this, if I save, here we have H4 and so on. We have H5. If I paste this, and here we can see, and so on. So these are different ways we can make a heading on a web page. Next I want to talk about is comments. Now there are two reasons why we make comments. One, we make comments to describe our code, and then the second reason is we make comments to hide the visibility of our code. Now for example, I want to make a note, or I want to describe what this heading 1 tag is doing. So all I just need to do is, maybe on top of it, I'm going to make a tag, and here you see we have a less than sign, exclamation mark, and 2 hyphens. Next, we need to close it with 2 hyphens and then a greater than sign. Then in between, I'm going to make my note. This is how to make a heading in HTML. So right now, if I save, this does not display on the browser. Reason being that it is a comment. So comments are ignored on the browser, so it doesn't display or it doesn't run on the browser. So this is one reason to describe our code. And then secondly, if I want to hide the visibility of H5, for example, I will simply introduce the comment tag, which is less than sign, exclamation mark, 2 hyphens, and then I'm going to close it right here. If you do not close it, it's going to regard this or every other code afterward as part of the comment. So right now I'm going to close it because this is where I want the comment to end. So I have 2 hyphens and then a greater than sign. So once I save, so here you can see that the visibility of heading 5 is hidden. So the same thing for this. If I want to make a multi-line comment, let's say I want to make a multi-line comment that is commenting H1, H2 to H4. So all I need to do is I'll introduce the opening comment tag right here. So we'll have less than sign, 2 hyphens, less than sign, exclamation mark, 2 hyphens, and then I'm going to close it right here. So if I save this, so you can see that the visibility of H2, H3 and H4 is hidden. We just have H1 left. So this is the second reason why we make comments or we introduce comments on our code. Thank you so much for watching, and in the next lecture we shall be looking at other tags in HTML. Hi and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture we are going to be looking at the P tag in HTML. In the last video we looked at the H tag, which actually stands for heading, and the H tag includes H1, H2, H3 and so on. So what does the P tag imply? The P tag defines a paragraph, and each time we make a paragraph it creates a blank line. Now in order to demonstrate this, just below this I'm going to enter a P tag, and then I'm going to hit tab, and this will complete the tag for me. And I'm just going to make a sentence, maybe this defines the paragraph in HTML. So if I save this, and here we have a paragraph. Now let's suppose I want to copy this to make another paragraph just underneath this. Now if I save, now you notice it creates a blank line after each paragraph. So you can see the first paragraph here is on top. So let's say this defines a paragraph in HTML. So let's say 1, so we can see the difference, and then we have 2 here. Okay, so if I save this, and here we can see, so this is the first paragraph, and the second paragraph, before it displays, is going to create a blank line, and this is what makes it a paragraph. So now Visual Studio Code comes with an extension called Lorem by default. Lorem will generate a dummy text for us just for demonstration's sake. So just in between my p tag, I'm going to type Lorem, and then I will hit tab. So if I maximize my editor, so here you can see a string of characters. It's not actually an English word, but it's just a dummy text just for demonstration. So now if I minimize this and save, and here we have it on our web page. So this is an example of a paragraph. Now if I maximize this again and try to make this as so I'm going to break from here, so I don't have the time to be scrolling left and right. So I'm going to break from here, and maybe call it break from here, and then the tab, the p tag, I'm going to drop it here. So right now if I minimize my browser, save, you notice that your changes here by breaking in between the characters doesn't change the way it displays, as long as it is wrapped in between your tags. So as long as your paragraph, your text is in between the p tag, it will always display as a paragraph. So right now if I copy this once more, and let me have a duplicate, so if I save, and here you see we have another paragraph. So this is what the p tag does in HTML. It's meant for creating paragraphs. Thank you so much for watching. Hello and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture we shall be looking at the list tag in HTML. Now the list tag in HTML allows us to group a set of related items in a list. For example, if I want to group a related items in a list, I'm going to type OL, and this is ordered list. So we have two types of list. This is ordered list, and then we have another type of list which is unordered list, UL. So now on the OL, I'm going to bring this down, and the next thing is LI, list item. So every ordered list or unordered list has a list item. So if I also bring this down and save, it doesn't reflect or show on the web page until we've added a list item. So right now I'm going to add a list item which is LI, and let's say this is red, and then I'm going to add another one, and let's say blue, and then I'm going to add another one, and let's say brown. So right now if I save, and here we have it. So this is how we can create a related list item in HTML. Now if I copy this and paste it on the unordered list and then save, and here we have it. So right here you can spot the difference. We have the first one with numbers, and then the second one with a bullet point. So these are the difference. Ordered list, you can see the list is ordered 1 2 3 and so on, and then we have an ordered list without 1 2 3 but rather a bullet point. So if I want to change the 1 2 3, I'm going to come here just after the OL. Inside the opening tag of my ordered list, I'm going to introduce what we call an attribute. So whenever we write an additional keyword here, it's called an attribute. So I'll make a space and then I'll say type equal to quote. So type equal to quote, and if I select A and save my file, so here we have the ordered list in ABC. So if I change this to I, if I save this again, and here we have it in Roman numerals. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next lecture. Hello everyone, and welcome to this lesson. In this lesson, we are going to be looking at div tag and span tags in HTML. In the last lecture, we looked at how to make a list element. Now we are going to look at how we can write the div tag and then the span tags. Let's suppose I have a paragraph. So I'm going to create a paragraph below. So I'm going to make a paragraph using the P tag. If I want to use a shortcut, I will simply enter P on my keyboard and then hit the tab key, and this will automatically generate the opening and the closing tag. And in between the paragraph tag, I will simply type a shortcut that will generate a dummy text for me. So I will type lorem in between that. So after typing lorem, I will hit tab, and this will generate a dummy text for me. So I'm going to make it so that I can see everything. So I'm going to break some text so I can see everything clearly. So to break some text, you simply click and hit enter on your keyboard. If I want to break some text from here to a new line, so I can simply click enter, and then you can see it. So but note that if I save this by pressing Ctrl S on my keyboard, it doesn't really break the text on the screen. So here we write our code and then we view our code on the screen. So we see the result, we view the result on the screen. So when we break to new lines on our code editor, it doesn't really break right here, as long as everything is wrapped on the P tag. So the div tag and the span tag doesn't really do anything for now. We are going to look at it more in details when we talk about CSS and JavaScript languages. So but the div tag actually defines a division. So it means a division or a section in an HTML document. Let's suppose I have something like this as a text, and I want to style from the lorem to this. So I want to give this a color. So among all the text I have right here, I want to give just this a color. So what I will simply do is to wrap this text, to wrap it in a div. So here I'm going to say less than sign, div for div, then the greater than sign, and then I'm going to close it right here, not here. So I'll close it right here. So I'm going to type it and then close it right here. So now I have made what? A division. So this is like a section of my text which I want to put a difference. Maybe I want this to be of different color. So I'm going to put a div tag. Or I can simply put a span. So if I don't want to use div, I'll use a span just like this. And that is it. So now if I save this it doesn't really do anything. So you can see I just saved it on my code editor and it remains the same. But if I go back to the div tag and save, you observe that it breaks to a new line. So from the screen you observe that it breaks to a new line, and that's because div tag or division tag is a block level element. In HTML, it's a block level element, so it stands on its own. So that is all about div and span tag. So we're going to learn more about how to apply them in our HTML in future lectures. Thank you for watching and see you in the next lecture. Hi everyone and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to talk about line break in HTML. The line break tag is used to break from an existing line to a new line. In order to demonstrate this, let's go back to our first paragraph that we made. So here you can see the paragraph, and here we can see it on the screen. So let's say I want to break from one of the lines. Maybe I want to break from here to a new line. So all I just need to do is to introduce the break tag right here. So if I put down the break tag, which is less than sign B arrow, and then I'm going to close it. So the break tag is just a standalone, it doesn't have a closing tag. So just like this, and once I save, you notice I have broken from the existing line to a new line. So the text after the break tag will continue from a new line. So here you can see that. So you don't use a div. Remember in the last video we used a div, and the div basically is used when we want to make a difference in our text. So but if you actually want to break from an existing line to a new line, you use the B arrow tag, which is a break tag in HTML. So that is that for this video, and in the next lecture we shall be looking at attributes in HTML. Hello everyone and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture we are going to be looking at HTML attributes and how we can apply these attributes to other HTML tags. So we shall be talking about how to add image using the image tag, and how to make a text linkable in HTML, and then we'll also apply the attribute tag. Now, what is an attribute? An attribute is simply an addition or adding additional information to our tag. So it simply means adding functionality to our HTML elements. So for example, let's say I want to add an image to this web page. If I want to add an image, I'll simply enter an image tag, which is img, just like this. Now, entering an img like this is not enough to add an image to our web page. So all I need to do is to give a space and then enter one of the attributes, which is sroc. So if I say sroc equal to something, the sroc actually means source, a source attribute, and this source attribute is responsible for adding image to our web page. So right now we don't have an image on this folder, so now I'm going to bring in an image and then I'll put the name of the image right here. So I'll simply minimize my editor and I'll look for an image. So if I go to this folder, I think I'm going to get an image. So I'm going to copy this image right here So I'll copy one of the image and I'm going to paste that image in our project directory, which is called HTML. So I'll paste the image on our project directory. So I'll double click to open it, and I'll right click and then paste the image. So right here we have just one image in our project directory. So I'm going to rename this image because it has some string of characters. So for simplicity's sake, I'm going to rename it. So I'll right click on it and I'll simply click on rename. So right now let me just call it Camilla. So Camilla. So that's the name of the image. So now I can close my project directory and then open up my code editor. So right on my code editor, you can see we have the image right here. So if I click on the image, so you can see the image appearing on our code editor, but we want this image to appear on our web page so that everybody can see it. So right now I will go back to my index.html code. So in order to make this image appear on our web page or on the browser, so I'll simply come to the sroc or the source attribute. It's called source attribute, and this is the image attribute. So on the source attribute, I will simply enter the name of the image. So the name of the image is camilla.jpg. So make sure you include the JPG. So that's the full name of the image. So camilla.jpg. So right now if I save my code, and then you can see the image displaying on the web page. So if I maximize my browser, so here you can see the image. The image is very big. It has actually occupied our browser. So let's go back again and add another attribute. Like I said previously, attributes add functionalities to our HTML elements. Now I'm going to give a space, and then I will introduce another attribute which is called width. So just like this. So width equal to something. So attribute is always equal to something. So inside here I'm going to pass in the value. So attribute is made up of the name of the attribute, you have the equality sign, and then inside the quotes we enter the value of our attribute. So the same thing here, we have the attribute name and then we have the value inside the quotes. So in between these quotes, these double quotes, I'm going to pass in, let's say I want the width to be 250. So just like this. So if I save this, now you can see the width is 250, and this has reduced our image. You can equally specify the height just by giving a space again and then height attribute. And a height attribute, maybe I want the height to be let's say 200. So if I save, you can see it has actually resized the image to 250 by 200. So this is how we add functionality to our HTML element by using attributes. So you can see that most HTML elements on its own cannot work. So we need to introduce what? An attribute. The next HTML tag that actually requires an attribute is the link tag. If I want to make a text linkable, I will need to wrap it the link tag. So this is the link tag. If I simply enter A, just like this, and then I'll close it. So right here, let's say I want to make a text. Let's say click here. So if I save it, so right now click here. If I try to click, so you can see the text is not acting as a link. So we click on it, it doesn't take you to anywhere. Now to make it linkable, I need to add the attribute, and the attribute is called href. So I'll say href, just like this, in lowercase. So make sure your HTML tags and attributes are in lowercase. So I'll say href, so just like this, and here I will include the link. So let's say I want this to be linkable, to link to Google or to link to facebook.com or google.com. I'll come here and enter google.com. So right now, if I save this, so you can see it's now acting as a link. So if I try to click this, it tried redirecting me to Google website, but because I don't have an active internet connection, this will not work. But this is how we create a link in HTML. So we have other attributes that we can also add in our paragraph tags, and here you can see when we learned about the list elements, so we added a type attribute. So we have other attributes. Let's say I want to make a paragraph. This is just a sample text. So if I want to add or extend this paragraph, I will simply add an attribute, a class attribute equal to something, and this class attribute is used when we want to add color to this text. So I will use a class attribute to do this. So in future lessons, we are going to learn more about the class attributes. So this is just how attributes are written and what it stands for in HTML. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next lecture. Hi everyone, and welcome to this movie. This movie is just a quick exercise of what we have learned. So I want you to make a try and replicate what you're seeing on the screen right now. So here you can see my favorite, and then you can see this is a list, and you have some bullet points under the phones, and then you have some bullet points under the cars. So see if you can do this, and once you've completed the exercise, you can simply send me the screenshot of your code. So it's pretty simple, and I believe you'll be able to do it. So see you in the next lecture, where I'm going to do this myself, and then you can see if you got it correct or wrong. Hi, and welcome to this lecture. So here is a quick solution to the list assignment. So the first thing I'm going to do right here, I'm going to create a new file. So I'm just going to call this exercise _1.html. So make sure you include the html.html. So and then I'm going to bring in the structure of my HTML. So in between the body tag, I'm going to make a heading 2 tag, so h2, and then I'm going to say my favorite. And then below my h2, I'm going to enter ordered list, so ordered list, and in the ordered list I'm going to give it a type of A, and then I'm going to enter an li, and in this li I'm going to write phones, and then I'll make another li, and this is going to be cars. So my favorite cars and favorite phones. So if I save this file by holding Ctrl S on my keyboard, and then I'm going to right click anywhere on the editor, and then open with live server. So right here you can see my favorites, and then we have phones, A and B cars. So next we are going to make what we call a nested list. Now a nested list is a list inside of a list, inside of another list. So right now we have Li, and then below the phones I'm going to make an ordered list. So UL for unordered list, and then in between the unordered list I'm going to enter an Li. So the first one is going to be Apple. I love Apple phones. And then the next is going to be Samsung. And then the last is going to be Redmi, Xiaomi Redmi. So if I save this file, and here we have it. Next is the cars. So just below the cars I'm going to make an ordered list again, and then Li, and the first one is Mercedes-Benz. Next is BMW, and then the last Li is Ford. So now if I save this file, and here we have it. So this is a quick solution to the exercise. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next lecture. Hello everyone, and here is another quick exercise for you. The more you get your hands on doing something, the better you become. So here I have included an image, and just above the image you see a text. So you decide what heading is this. So this is shoes, and then just below that you see another text, huge discounts when you buy from our store. So the image must not be exactly the same, so you can use any image of your choice, and then below the image we have another text. So make sure to follow us on Instagram, and then make sure to follow us on Twitter. So try as much as possible to do this yourself, and in the next lecture I'm going to come up with a solution to see if you've got it correctly or wrongly. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next lecture. Hi everyone, and welcome to this movie. So here is a quick solution to the last assignment. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a file. So this time right click and create a file, and I'm going to call it exercise 2, exercise_2.html. So I'm going to hit enter. So here I'm going to bring in my HTML structure or boilerplate, and I'm going to make a heading 1 tag. So h1, this is going to be h1 tag, and I'm going to write shoes. So I'm going to say shoes, and after that I'm going to make a paragraph. So make sure it's lowercase, and in that paragraph I'm going to say huge discount when you buy from our store. Huge discounts when you buy from our stores, right? And after that I'm going to bring in an image tag just like this, and I'm going to use the previous image we included on our project, so which is a camela.jpg. So you can choose to use any image of your choice. So right now I have an image, so here it is. So if I click on it, you can see it opens up. So let's go back to the exercise, and right in the source tag I'm going to enter the name of the image, so which is camela.jpg. I'll give it a width of 300, and I'll give it a height of 300 because of the size of the image. So if I save this and then right click and open with live server, and here we have it. So the next thing, I'm going to include the text on the footer, so which is a paragraph text. So I'll make another paragraph, and I'm going to say make sure to follow us on and then after the on, I'm going to include a link tag or anchor tag. If I click A and then hit tab, and in between the link tag I'm going to write Instagram. So follow us on Instagram, and I'm going to copy this and paste for Twitter. So I'm going to change this to Twitter. So if I save this, and here we have it on the browser. So you can compare if you got it correctly. If you got it correctly, thumbs up, and see you in the next lecture. Hello friends, and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to learn how to create HTML tables. HTML tables are simply made up of rows and columns. So I'm going to comment all of this so we can see our table clearly. So I'm going to highlight, and then I'm going to press and hold Ctrl and / on my keyboard as a shortcut. And then I'm going to do the same for this. So if I save this, and here we go, we've commented everything. So now let's learn how to create a table. So just below this, I'm going to bring in the table elements. I'll say table, and then inside the table element we have table heading and table body. If we have name, let's say first name, last name, age as the table heading, and then if Mr. A comes and wants to fill in the table or wants to fill out the table, he is going to enter a table data according to the table heading. So if I have the first name, I'm going to enter my first name. If I have a last name, then I'm going to enter my last name. So here it is. The first is going to be table heading or table head. So T head, which stands for the table head, and then I'm going to make a T body, which stands for table body. And then let's focus on the table head first. So I'm going to bring this, and inside the table head we have table rows, TR, which stands for table row. So like I said earlier, HTML tables are made up of rows and columns. So all the table head are going to be in one row, and then we can have the table data on different rows. So our first row, I'm going to say T arrow, which is for table row, and inside the table row I'm going to bring in the table headings. So TH for the table heading, and the first one is going to be, let's say, first name, and then we have another table heading, and this will be last name. Then we're going to bring in another, and this can be for age. So if I save this, and here we have it. Now to clearly see this, I'm going to add an attribute. Note, instead of using the attribute, we can use CSS. But for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to enter an attribute called border. So I will say border equal to 1. So if I save this, and here we go, so you can see we have our table with borders. So now we are done with the table head. Now let's move over to the table body. So in the table body, I'm going to bring in a table row. So we are going to have, we have just made one row for the table heading. So beneath the table heading, or beneath this row, is going to be another row. So just here I'm going to make a T arrow, and inside the T arrow is going to be our table body or table data. So TD stands for table data that goes into the table body. So table data, and I'm going to fill out my first name. So here I have a typo name. So I'm going to fill out my first name. My first name, let's say, is Mike, and then my last name is maybe Nelson, and then I have my age is, and then let's say my age is 25. So if I save this, and here we go, we have made a table data which is defined by the table heading. So anybody that comes to this table is going to fill out based on the table heading. So I can make another row. So if I copy this, so I'm going to copy the row and then paste this again. So if I save this again, so you see we have the same data. So let me make changes to this. Let's say the next person is John. John Doe. And then his age is 30. And here we go. So this is how to make a simple table in HTML. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next lecture. Hello friends, here is another quick exercise for you on HTML table. You can see from the screen I've created a table of student mark sheet, and you can see the student name, maths, and the different subjects: maths, science, English, physics, and general knowledge. And here you have their different names and then their different scores or mark. So try as much as possible to do this yourself. I bet you the more you do, or the more you practice, the better you become. For any reason you couldn't get it correctly, I'm going to send a solution, but try to make a trial, and I will see you in the next lecture. So here is a quick solution to the last exercise on HTML table. So first I created the table tag, and then I gave it a border of 1, and then here is a closing tag of the table tag, and then inside the table tag I have created a table head. So here we have a table head, and then I made the first row, which is the student mark sheet. So this is a row. I've introduced a code span of equal to 6. Now this is colon span, and the reason why I gave it 6 is because we have 6 columns in this table. We have the student name, math, science, English, physics, and general knowledge. So that is 6. So once I say colon span equal to 6, it's going to center this in the middle of our table. Next we have another row, which is this, where we have the student name, math, science, English, physics, and general knowledge. All of these are inside the table head. So the first row and this make up the table head. So now let's move over to the table body. So just a quick one, I'm going to paste the table body code. So now if I save, and here we have it. So in the table body I have the first row, which is Solomon. So here we have Solomon's data, and then the next row is Mike, and we have Mike's data. The next row we have John, and we have John's data. We have the next row for Tony, and this row represents Tony. And then we have the last row for Scott, and here we have it. So this is a quick solution to it. If you got it correctly, then a big thumbs up. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next lecture. In this lecture, we are going to be looking at HTML forms. Now, what are HTML forms? HTML forms are used to collect user input. So the user enters some information, and then the information will be sent to the server for processing. But our HTML form is just going to be a front-end form. It's not really going to do anything on the server side. So it's just a basic form on the user's side. In real life, you may have seen some forms, such as the Gmail form, where you can sign in if you already have an account, or you can create an account. So here we just have a basic input element, and then we have a button. Then we also have Facebook, where you can enter your email address or phone number. So here we have 2 input elements or input tags, where the users can enter their information, and then we have a button. So you can see that you may have more than 2 input tags but 1 button. So when all information is being entered on the form tags, and then the user clicks on this button, and all the information will be sent to the server. So in this lecture, we'll start by playing around with different input tags or input elements of HTML forms. So here I've commented the previous lecture. Let's look at some few and commonly used HTML input tags. So here I'm going to say input. We have the type as text. Then we have another input, and this is going to be, let's say, color. And then we do have another input tag, let's say checkbox. Then let's create another input tag, and this is going to be password. Then let's have another input tag, and let's call this radio. another input tag, and this is going to be submit. So if I save this and preview this on the browser, and here we have it. So we can see the first input is this box right here. So when you have an input tag with a type of text, the user can come to the box and then type his or her name. So let's say Mike, and here you can see is visible. And then we have the next one as color. So here the user can choose his preferred color. And then we have the next one as checkbox. So here it is. Then we have the next one as password. Now you notice that the first type, which is text, and then the one for password are the same. Now the difference is that a user can type on the text and it's going to be visible, but if the user types on the password just like this, it's not going to be visible unless it is being previewed. So you can see by default, when a user types on the box, is not visible. That is because the type is password. Now we have the next as radio. So this is of type radio. Here we have it. So you can see this radio. And lastly, we have submit. And here we have it. So when all the form fields is being entered, then the user will finally click on the submit. There is another way of creating submit button. So I can call this a button. So I'm going to create a button tag just like this, and then I'm going to give it an attribute type of submit just like this. So if I hit save, and here we have it. I have to give it a text. So in between the button, I'm going to say, let's say login or submit. So let's say login. So if I save this, and here we have it. So whatever text you enter here is going to display on the button. So these are two different ways you can create a button. So we'll have the first one with the input tag, and then we'll have the second button with the button tag. So for now, I'm going to remove some of this. I'm going to remove this, then equally remove this. So if I save this, so we just have the text, and then we have the password field and a submit button. We can also specify a placeholder, and a placeholder will simply display a text inside the box. So if I give a space, and I will say placeholder, and let's call this, so let's say full name. If I save this, and here we have it. So but if I type inside of it, it's going to erase the placeholder. So the placeholder is just a guide that tells you where to type your full name and where to type your password. So next, I'm going to add a placeholder, and this is going to be password. So if I save this, and here we have it. And then finally, when the user enters his first name, let's say Maxwell, and then he enters his password 23456, and then the user clicks on submit, and the form will be sent to the server for processing. That is, if the form is programmed using server-side languages. Thank you for watching, and in the next lecture, I'm going to show you how to create a complete form using the HTML form tag. See you in the next lecture. In the last lecture, we created some input tag. By appearance, this may seem to be a form, but technically in HTML, this is not a complete form. So for you to have a complete form, everything must go inside of the form tag. So I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to create the form tag. So I will say form, and then I'm going to separate this. So here we have the opening form tag and the closing form tag, and then we have an action which is equal to empty right now. And what the action attribute does is that, so it's going to specify where the form will send data to. So for example, if I pass in facebook.com, so that means when a user clicks on this form, it's going to send data to whatever action we specify. So another important attribute is the method. So I will say method. Method attribute specifies the type of HTTP method you want to use in this form. So we have post, just like this, or we have get. These are the two major methods we are going to use in our form. Next, I'm going to paste in the input tags that we had in the last lecture. So here we have the different form elements or input tags inside of the form tag. So if I save this right now, and you can see by appearance everything remains the same, but this is now a complete form. Hello everyone, and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to look at the label tag in HTML form. The label tag is simply a way of adding captions to our form fields. Now, there are two ways of doing this, and the first way is that I'm going to enter a label tag just like this. And I'm going to bring this down, and then the input tag will be nested inside of the label, so just like this. And then I'm going to enter some text. So let's say enter, or let's say full name. And then I'm going to do the same thing. So let me toggle this off. Let me toggle so we can see the screen clearly. So I'm going to do the same for this label, and then I'm going to copy this so that this can be nested inside of the label tag, just like this. And I'll enter my text, password. So if I save this, and here we have it. So we'll have the full name label, and then we'll have the password. So it's simply a way of adding captions to our form, provided we have the placeholder. So you can remove the placeholder if you do not want the placeholder. If I save this, and then here we have it. Now this is one way of doing this. Now another way of doing this is to keep the label tag separate from the input tag. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. I will copy this and then comment on this, and then I'm going to have another copy downward. So I'm going to copy this out from being in the nested label. I'm going to have it separate from it, then copy this out. We can have it separate. So then I'm going to keep this in a separate line, and I'll do the same for this. So just like this. So it's always good to have a cleaner code. So we have the full name label, and then we have the password label. So if I save this, you can see everything remains the same. So it's not going to change anything per the appearance. Next, I'm going to add an attribute, so which is a for attribute. So I'll say for, and I'm going to specify full name, and then in the input tag I'm going to add an ID attribute, and I'm going to enter same full name. So I'll do the same for the password field, for, and then I'll enter the ID as password too. So one reason for doing this is to provide a usability improvement for screen readers. So whenever there is a mouse click on the label, it toggles and corresponds to the ID. So same thing for password, and then it corresponds to this ID. So these are the two different ways of adding a label tag in our HTML form. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next lecture. In this lecture, we are going to be looking at HTML5 form validations. What exactly is form validation? A form validation is simply a way of enforcing rules and some structure in your form fields. Before submitting data to the server, it is important to ensure that all required form controls are filled out in the correct format. There are different ways of doing validation or enforcing some rules and structure in your form. Maybe using other languages like JavaScript or PHP and other server languages. But by default, HTML comes with built-in form validations, which we are going to explore right now. First of all, let's say we want to submit our form http://google.com, and now I want to enforce some rules. And one of the simple rules I want to enforce is that I do not want this field to be empty, or the password field to be empty, before the user clicks on submit. So to do that, I'm going to specify required in the input tag. So I will simply say required, just like this, and I will equally do the same for the password, and just like this. So now if I try to submit the form, and here you can say please fill out the field. So if I fill out this field and then try to submit it, and it equally says please fill out this field. So now if I fill out the field 1 2 3 4 5, now if I hit on submit, and here you can see that we have the form data has been sent to Google. So this is a simple way of doing validation. So let's say we want to add an additional field. So I'm just going to copy this, and this is going to be for email. I'm going to change this for email, and the ID will call it be email, and this will be email, and the type is going to be email, so we can enforce this properly. And the name field will equally be email. So if I save this, so right here we have the full name, email, and password. So if I try to submit this, it's going to ask me to fill out the field. So let's say Mike, and if I submit, it's going to ask me to fill out this. So let's say I want to wrongly enter an email address. So let's say my email is John. I try to submit, and here you can see it says please include the @ symbol. So this is made possible because of the type email, and we also have the required. So there are other validations such as specifying the minimum length, the max length, pattern, or regular expression. So thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next lecture. Hello everyone, and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to be looking at other form tags in HTML, such as radio button, the select tag, and text area. So in order to demonstrate this, I'm going to comment out this. So if I save it, so now I'm going to create a very simple form. So enter my form tag. Oops. Just like this. Then I'll specify the method. I'll just leave it maybe as get. And then in here, so I'm just going to pass in a paragraph, and let's say please choose your gender, something like this. Then I'm going to enter my label for, call this gender, then I'm going to call this male, then this is going to be male. Then I'm going to enter my input tag, and this is going to be radio. Very important. This is going to be radio. Pass in the ID male, and then now pass in a name attribute. So let's call this male. Oops, I'm going to call this gender. So we're going to have two of these, so one for male and one for female. So the name is going to be gender, so we can track whether the person has chosen male or female. So the name is going to be gender, and maybe the value for this is going to be male. So this is the value that will be passed on, so we can know so we can keep track of what the user has selected. So next I'm going to copy this, and I will have one for female. So this is going to be for female, and I'm going to have this. So this female, and this female. And the value for this is equally going to be female. So just like this. So make sure you have the name as gender. So if I save this, so this is what we'll have on the browser. Please choose your gender, or please select your gender. So you can see that the radio button is mostly used when you have one option, when you want to allow the user to choose one option. So you can't have two options. So it's either you are a male or you are a female. So just like this. Next, I'm going to create the select tag. So this is how we create select tag. So I'll enter select, just like this. So I have name. So let's call this country. So let's call this country. Just above that, I'm going to enter a paragraph. So let's say select your country, so something like this. You select your country. So here you can see what the select looks like. So now after entering the select tag, next we are going to specify the different options that we want our user to choose. So here the ID can still be country, and then here is the important part. So option, just like this. So the option has another attribute called value. So when we pass in, let's say this person is from USA, so we need to pass in the value as USA. So if I save this, so you can see we have our first option, and I can copy this and maybe have other options. So this can be England, and then we also specify England as our value. So this can be Ukraine. I'm not sure if this is the spelling of Ukraine, but make sure it is spelled out correctly. So here I have USA, so the user can select England or select Ukraine. So this is how to create a drop down button or select tag in HTML. So next is the text area. So to create a text area, maybe I can enter a paragraph tag again. Enter your message, so something like this. Now I'm going to say text area, so text area just like this. So by default you're going to have the size of your colon given and your rows given. So you have name and attribute. So this I can call it message, then the ID can equally give it what message. So if I save this, and here we have it, so we can type whatever as our message in the box. So we can specify the size of our colon and then the size of our rows. So if I specify 5, for example, if I save this, and here you can see that the rows has reduced to 5. So these are the different tags or form fields we have in HTML. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next lecture. Hello and welcome back. By now you've built a solid foundation in HTML. You've learned how to create headings, paragraphs, links, and even simple forms. That's amazing progress, but we're about to level up your skills. In this section, we are diving into advanced concepts of HTML, the kind of techniques that transform basic web pages into dynamic, user-friendly, and professional design. So, without much ado, let's get into it. So, in this section, I've created a folder on my desktop, so you can create the folder wherever you want it to be, or you want it to be located. So mine is on the desktop and it's called HTML Advanced. So right now it's still a folder, so I'm going to create, or I just right click and then create a new file. So I'm going to call this file index.html. So you can call it index, just like we have been doing, index.html, right? And here we go. So if we want to bring in our boilerplate, so you're going to hold shift and then the exclamation mark, then hit tab on your keyboard, and here we go. So now I'm going to right click and open this with a live server. So here the live server is coming up on the browser. Alright, so I'm just going to divide my screen so I can have everything in. Okay, so this can be here. Let me minimize this. Okay, I'll have something like this, and then we'll have this. Alright. right, something like this. Okay, so we write our code and then we visualize it right here. So the first thing we are going to talk about is semantic HTML. Semantic HTML refers to using HTML tags that have meaning and structure. For example, tags like header, footer, article, section, and navs. So in order to demonstrate this, I'm just going to create a new file. So you can hit on the new file icon or just right click, new file, and I just want to call this semantic. So I want to have every topic in its own file. So semantic, all right, semantic.html. So you can choose to call this whatever name you prefer. So I prefer to call it semantic.html so my files can be organized. And the reason why I'm doing this is just for demonstration purposes. So in a real website, in a real world website, you're not going to have something like this. So maybe you could have just one file, index.html. So what exactly is semantic? Just like I said, semantic HTML refers to using HTML tags to have meaning and structure. So when we write HTML, it's not just for the browser, it's also for humans and other developers and even search engines. So semantic HTML helps us write meaningful code. For example, let's say I have my boilerplate, and for now I'm just going to remove the meta tag because I'm going to talk about this later. So we just have the title, and within the body element, which is the body of our browser, I'm going to specify the header element just like this. So the header element or header tag is used at the top of a page for titles, navigation, or branding. So for this example, let's say I want to give a title of welcome to my blog. So I'm going to use h1 within the header element. So h1, I'm going to say welcome to my blog. So if I save this, and now we are still on this, so I'm just going to open this in live server, and here we go. So the header element is mostly used when we want to specify the title, navigation, or branding of our web page. Then we also have another element called section, just like this, and the section is used to group related content together. You can think of it as a chapter in a book. So we use it to group related content together. So for example, let's say I have h2 and I want to say about me. Next, I'm just going to write some content about me. So I can say I am a passionate developer. So something like this. And here we go. I'm a passionate developer. Or I can just put a dummy text, Lauren. If I save that, and here we go. I'm just going to break this. Alright. So that is for the section. Then we also have another element, and this is going to be footer. Just like this. So the footer appears at the bottom of the page and is usually for copyright or contact info. So we use it to specify copyright or contact info. So for example, let's say I have a paragraph, and inside the paragraph I want to say copyright copyright 2024, so something like this. So if I save that, and here we go. So this is a basic example of what we meant by semantic HTML. So we have the different, we have the title, we have the header, we have the section, and we have the footer. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Hi everyone, and welcome to this lesson. In this lesson, we are going to learn about HTML media, such as audio and video. So we are going to learn how to embed audio and video into your HTML pages. In order to demonstrate this, I'm just going to create a file, new file, and I'll call that media.html. I'll bring in my boilerplate, and then I'll get rid of the meta tag because I'm going to talk about it later. And here we go. So if I right click, open with a live server, and here we have a blank page. So to embed an audio, first I'm going to create h1 tag so I can give it some content. So I can say media in HTML. And first I want to show you how to embed audio, so I'm just going to give h2 element, h2, and I'll say audio. This first is going to be audio, so just like this. If I save that, so audio. Now to embed an audio, we need the audio element or tag, just like this. Then I'm going to break this down. If I save that, so nothing is going to appear because we need to specify some attributes and some content. So by default, we have the src already populated for us. So we also have another attribute called control. So I'm going to say controls, so just like this. So I don't need the source right here. So after that, I'm going to specify the source, and then we have the attribute src, and then we also have another attribute called type. So on the source, this is where we specify the source of our audio. So right now we don't have any audio in this folder, so we are going to go back to my computer, and then we are going to look for an audio file. So let me do a search. Let me go to music. Let me go to desktop and look for a sound. So I have a background music. Okay. Let me play this. Okay, so I'm going to get this sound. So I have a sound already, so I'm going to copy that to my folder, advanced HTML. So I'm just going to put that right here, or you can create a new folder. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new folder. So I'll call that sounds or assets. Call that assets. Then I'm going to put that sound right here. Okay, so let's go back to our file. So right here I have my file. It's here. And this should be playing. I don't know why my speaker is not playing out. It's not sounding, it's not producing any sound, but you can see the music playing right here. So how do you add that right here? So I'll go back to the file. So where we have the source, I'm going to specify the sound. So I'm going to specify where the mp3 file is. So this is actually an mp3 file. So it could be any format, it could be wave, it could be any kind, any type of file. So this is located inside the asset folder. So I'm going to say assets, and inside that is the file. So basically it's a long name. You can see right here is .mp3. Okay, so that's the source. Next, I'm going to specify the type of the audio. So the type is audio, so you're going to say audio slash mp3. So audio slash mp3. So if it is wave, so you will say slash wave. If it is mpeg, you have to specify that. So mine is mp3, so just like this. So if I save the file, and here we go, so you can see the sound is playing right here. So this is how to include an audio file in your HTML page. So next is video. So I'm just going to create h2 tag, and I'm going to say video. I want to demonstrate how to include a video. Next, I'm going to bring in the video element, and here we go. And the first tag I'm going to specify is controls, and I'm also going to bring in a tag called width. I want to specify the size of my video, so I want it to be 400. And inside the video elements, I'm going to specify the source, just we did in audio, and then the src attributes. So this is where we specify the actual video. So right now I'm still going to go back to my file browser, and I'm going to look for a video. So I'm just going to copy this file, then I will go to my folder, which is advanced HTML. So inside the assets, I'm going to have a video right there, so you can see the video. Now if I go back to my browser and then my text editor, so right here I'm going to specify the video. So my video is located in assets, and the video is course outline.mp4. Then the next attribute is we have to specify the type of video, just like we did in audio. So we are going to say video slash mp4, so just like this, mp4. So if I save that, and here we go, so we have included a video. So if I play that right here, and here we go, so you can see our video is playing perfectly. All right, so if we want to increase the size, so we can say maybe up to 600 the width. If I save that, and here we go, so we have increased the size of our video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Hi everyone, and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to talk about HTML meta tags. So we are going to create a new file. So let's call that meta.html. So just like this. And then I'm going to bring in my boilerplate, then right click and open that in a live server. Alright, in the previous lesson, we've been creating different HTML files, and we have also been populating the HTML structure or boilerplate. And if we notice, in the head tag we have some elements, and these elements are called meta. So they are actually metadata. So metadata in HTML provides information about HTML documents. It's always invisible to the users. So you can see if we refresh our web page, it's invisible. So it's invisible to users. It's crucial for search engines and browser. So here we have the first meta, and then we have the chassis. And here, if I hover on it, it says this attribute declares the page character encoding. And just below it, it says authors are encouraged to use UTF-8. Now, this chassis defines the character set. So the UTF-8 is a character set that is recommended and is used for languages. So it works for most languages. The next metadata is a viewport. So we have the name equal to viewport. Now the viewport makes your site responsive. So if you want your site to be responsive, so you need to have this metadata, the viewport metadata. So you can see, so we have content width equal to device width, initial scale 1.0. So this helps for responsiveness. And then finally we have meta description. So meta description is not here, so we are going to include that right here. So we are going to say meta, or if we say meta just like this, and then we are going to say the name is description. Then we have content, so we can say learn HTML, so something like this. So yours might be different content, but what it means is that the content right here helps search engines to understand what your page is all about. So if you want your page to be SEO friendly, search engine optimized, then you need to have a meta description, and then the content should go in here. So this should be like a summary of what your page is all about. So that is that for HTML metadata. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Hi friends, in this video we are going to learn about HTML advanced forms. In the previous video we touched on how to create basic forms in HTML. So in this video we are going to talk about advanced attributes like required, placeholder, and pattern, and all these are used to enhance the user experience. So I'm going to create a new file. So let's call it form underscore advanced form underscore advanced.html, just like this. So I'm going to bring in my HTML structure and then right click and open that in a live server. So I'm going to make a registration form, and this is going to be h1. So let me call that registration form. I save that. Here we go. Next is the main form tag. So this is actually the form itself. So you have to start with the form tag just like this, and then we have the closing form tag. So inside the form tag we have some form elements. So the first one is going to be label, and the for, I'll just say name. So I'm going to give it name, and then in between the label elements, I'll also specify name. If I save that, so we'll have name. So this is like a label where users can enter their name. So next is the actual input tag. So this is where the form collects the data, collects the user's information. So that is for the input tag. So the type is going to be text. So here we can specify an ID, and that ID I will also give it a name, and we also have a name attribute, and this is mostly used for backend purposes. So name, and this is going to be name, and then finally we are going to say required. So we want this to be required. First of all, let me save the file. So here we go, and I'm going to create the submit so we can see how everything works. So I'm going to create an input tag. This does not need a label, so input, this is going to be submit, just like this. So this is where the user clicks when they want to, after filling the form, they can click on submit to submit their details. And if I save that, so here you can see submit. So I want to rename that submit to register. So I'm going to say value equal to register, just like this. I save that, and here we go. So right now, if I click on register, that means the form is allowing me to submit an empty field. So right now this is an empty value. So if I click on register, it allows me to do that. But if I come back to the input elements and specify the required attribute right here, if I save that, now if I try to register, it's going to ask me, please fill out this field. So users cannot submit an empty value or empty field without filling this out. So that is the essence of the required attribute. All right, so next is a placeholder. So if you want to further explain what the users should enter, we can put a placeholder. So we can say placeholder, and in that placeholder I simply want to say enter your name, something like this. If I save that, and here we go, enter your name. So the placeholder is not the value. So when a user starts typing, it fades out. So let's say my name is Sam. So you can see it's no longer there. So that is for the placeholder. All right, so next I'm going to put a break tag, so 2 break tag, so that I can have a space before the next label. So the next label is going to be email. So I'll say email, and then email. Then I'm going to have the input tag for the email, ID, email, the name attribute. This is also going to be email, and I want this to be required. So if I save that, and here we go, so you can see the label and the input tag has broken to a new line. So without this, if I comment on this, if I save that, you can see it doesn't look the way I want it. So with the break tag, so you can break to a new line, so everything can be vertical form. So next, I also want to break and then move to the next one. So the next one is going to be password. So I'm going to make a label for password. So for password, and then password, and then the input tag for this, instead of text, this is going to be password. So we have the ID, it's going to be password, and then we have the name as password, and then next I'm going to have a pattern because I want the password field to follow a given pattern. So right here I'm going to specify a dot, then curly brackets, then 8, and then comma. Then next I'm going to say title, give it the title tag, and right here I'm going to say 8 characters, 8 characters minimum, just like this. So this pattern specifies a regex pattern. So what we mean by regex pattern is regular expression for our input validation. So it's going to validate and make sure that the password entered is minimum of 8 characters. So if I enter a name and then my email, so let's say I just have a few password and click on register. So here you can see, please match the requested format, 8 characters minimum. So that is how to specify some input validation. And then finally we have the register. So but we need to break the register button. So B arrow, just like this. If I save that, and here we go. So this is another way we ensure that user input is valid in HTML. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Hello friends, and welcome to this lesson. In this lesson, we are going to learn about HTML graphics. Graphics in HTML are created using SVG for vector graphics and canvas for drawing. HTML graphics make your pages visually appealing. In order to demonstrate this, I'm going to create a file, a new file, and I'll call that graphics.html. Then I'm going to open that in a live server. Then I'll bring in my boilerplate. So here it is. Right. So we're going to start with the SVG element. The SVG element stands for scalable vector graphics. So SVG, just like this. Okay. Then I'm going to specify the width, and the width is going to be 200, and then the height 200. So this means that we have an element with a canvas size of 200 by 200 pixels. So next we want to create a circle using SVG. So we're going to say circle, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close that right here, just like this. Okay, so now I'm going to specify the CX. So the CX stands for the X coordinate. So we want to set the X coordinate of the circle center to 100 pixel. So we'll say 100 pixel. Then we are going to set the CY, which is the Y coordinate of the circle center, to 100 pixel. And then the radius of the circle is going to be 50 pixels. And finally, I want the fill to be blue, just like this. And now if I save the file, and here we go. So we have successfully created a circle using SVG. So let's try out another example. So I'm just going to copy this. So let me do a break tag. So this time I want to draw a polygon. So I'm going to say polygon, polygon, just like this. And then I'm going to set the points, maybe 100, 10, 120, 180. So we have 10, 60, then we'll have 190, 60, and then we'll have 80, 180. Then here I want the fill to be gold. So, and I want the stroke to be black, and then I'm going to specify the stroke width to be 2. So now if I save the file, and here we go. So we have created a polygon, and we've specified the different points of the polygon. And then you can see the stroke, which is also the same thing as the outline, is black, and then we gave it a width of 2. So we specify this to be 5. If I save that, it's going to be increased. If I save that, and here we go. The SVG can also be used to, you can create a star shape, you can create different shapes in HTML. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next section.